Have you ever felt like you're just an actor on a stage, always wearing a mask just to be accepted, instead of simply being yourself? Have you ever wondered why no matter how hard you try to please everyone, you still feel empty and disconnected from your own life? What if, just for today, you let go of all expectations and truly listened to the voice deep within your heart? That's where the secret to real freedom and peace begins. And that's what we're about to uncover. Let's set down the mask for a while. All that weight you've been carrying, the silent ache behind your smile, the relentless urge to please, to fit in, to prove that you're enough. It was never truly yours. It began the moment you traded the voice of your heart for the echo of the crowd, when you let the world's expectations drown out your soul's truth. Without realizing it, you gave away your boldness in exchange for belonging, and your genuine joy for mere permission to exist. You shaped yourself to fit into other people's narratives, becoming a character in their stories, but never fully living your own. And now, perhaps, you feel that strange emptiness. Even when surrounded by people, you feel distant, like a guest inside your own skin. The truth is harsh, but liberating. Your life isn't a rehearsal. These moments, slipping through your fingers, like grains of sand, are the only ones you have. Every breath spent living someone else's version of you is a breath stolen from the person you were destined to be. Ask yourself, when was the last time you did something purely for your soul's delight? When did you last stand still? Not to gain applause, not to earn validation, but simply to listen to the whisper of your own heart. This video isn't here to offer sweet comfort. It's here to awaken something ancient and unshakable within you. It's here to remind you that you owe the world nothing, but you owe yourself everything. And if you stay until the end, I promise you'll rediscover a truth your heart has never forgotten. Lesson 1. The silent collapse of living for everyone but yourself. There's a quiet kind of suffering that creeps in when you forget who you are. It's not loud or dramatic. It's subtle, like a tree bowing endlessly to every gust of wind, never growing its own roots, never claiming its space. Over time, you start to drift, shapeless and restless. How often have you done this? Smiled when you wanted to scream, said yes when your heart was begging you to say no. We are taught that approval comes when we make ourselves small, when we soften our edges to be acceptable. But no one tells you the cost that this path leads to an invisible collapse, a hollow kind of life where your joy depends entirely on someone else's permission to exist. When your value is tied to the unpredictable reactions of others, your peace becomes as fragile as glass. A kind word lifts you, but only for a fleeting moment. A harsh judgment, however, can shatter you completely. You become like a home built on unstable ground, forever swayed by the unpredictable winds of the outside world. Voices all around, family, friends, strangers on the internet, keep telling you who you should be. But here's the truth. None of them live in your body. None of them wake up each day with your heart beating inside their chest. And if you keep listening to their noise while ignoring your own inner voice, that voice will grow faint, fading away like a forgotten melody. No one remembers to play. But you can return. You can come back to yourself. Imagine a mighty tree with roots digging deep into the earth. When the winds howl and the storms rage, the tree doesn't break. It remains grounded steady, not because it fights the world, but because it knows exactly where it belongs. That is the gift of self-awareness. That is the heart of mindfulness. It's not just about silence or stillness. It's about presence, the quiet power of hearing your own soul above the world's clamor. Choosing yourself is not selfish. It's sacred. It's the courage to ask, what do I truly need today to feel whole? It's learning to say no without guilt and yes with conviction. It's trusting that your inner compass, though invisible, is wiser than the crowd's opinions. Start small. In the morning, ask yourself, what is true for me today? At night, reflect. Did I live as myself or as someone else's version of me? These simple questions plant roots that grow deep over time. As the Buddha said, peace comes from within. Do not seek it without. And he was right. The moment you stop chasing approval, you'll feel peace rising quietly, like a still lake beneath a stormy sky. You are already enough. Not because of their applause, not because of their acceptance, but because you exist right here in this moment in your own truth. So stay rooted. Move gently. Remember, the world doesn't need another copy of someone else. It needs you whole, steady, and real. Lesson 2. The hidden cost of pleasing everyone but yourself. There's a subtle betrayal we commit against our own soul when we keep saying yes while our heart is screaming no. We smile through pain, nod through discomfort, and call it kindness. We convince ourselves it's just politeness, that it's the right thing to do. But what if it's something deeper? What if, without even noticing, We've been giving away tiny pieces of our authenticity every single day. We've been swallowing tiny doses of poison just to quench someone else's thirst for comfort and approval. Every time you say yes, while your heart quietly pleads no, a useful fracture forms in your soul. At first, it's barely noticeable, but as the years pass, these little cracks deepen into canyons, and one day, you barely recognize the face staring back at you in the mirror. You were not born to be endlessly agreeable if it means dimming your spirit. You were not placed on this earth to twist your truth until it fits someone else's narrow mold of comfort. Yet so many of us do just that. We become performers on a stage we never chose, wearing costumes and masks just to feel seen, forgetting the raw, unfiltered beauty of our true face underneath it all. This habit starts young. We are taught that love is something we must earn by being easy, by smoothing out our edges, by swallowing our voice when it trembles. We learn that acceptance comes when we are soft, quiet, and endlessly accommodating. Over time, like a stream clouded by too many feet trampling through, we lose the pure clarity of who we really are. But here's the truth. Your soul was never meant to live trapped inside someone else's definition of enough. Real mindfulness calls you back home to sit with yourself in quiet honesty, without apology and without performance. It asks you to stop rewriting your emotions just to keep the peace. Instead, treat them like sacred messengers, each one carrying the wisdom of your own boundaries. That unease you feel when someone crosses your line, that is your truth, knocking on the door of your heart, asking to be acknowledged. True compassion doesn't start with self-sacrifice. It starts with self-respect. You cannot pour warmth into the world if your own fire has burned out. You cannot keep giving away your light just to make others feel comfortable in the dark. So ask yourself, in which moments of your life have you quietly disappeared just to be accepted? Where have you mistaken silence for true peace or agreement for real love? You don't need to revolt. You don't need to scream. The change begins softly with stillness, with a single gentle question. Do I genuinely want to give this piece of myself? Or am I just afraid to say no? Start by saying no kindly, but firmly. When your heart knows it's the right answer. Begin by creating boundaries, not as walls to keep people out, but as sots that protect the sacred garden of your being. Because like a garden, your spirit needs tending care and space to grow, not to be trampled by the expectations of others. The Buddha once said, "You yourself, as much as anybody in the entire universe, deserve your love and affection. It's time to believe that truth. This is not mere poetry. This is your permission slip to exist fully. A reminder that you are not here to shrink, to fade, or to blend into the background. You are here to rise. Stop abandoning pieces of yourself just to make others feel more at ease. Stop dimming your light simply because its brightness might make someone squint. The world may not always understand your fire, but when you begin to live from the inside out, rather than from the outside in, you don't just taste freedom. You become freedom itself. Lesson 3. Rise without apology. Release the exhausting need to be liked. Nowhere is it written that you must be loved or accepted by everyone to live a life of peace. Think of the sun. It rises every single morning without asking permission from the sky. It shines unapologetically, knowing some will bask in its warmth, while others hide in the shade. Yet it continues to rise, so why do we hold back? Why do we cut ourselves down just to fit into someone else's box of comfort? Why do we rewrite our truth to avoid the sting of someone's disapproval? The answer is painfully human. We've mistaken approval for oxygen. We've learned to crave validation like a bottomless thirst, and in doing so, we trade pieces of our authenticity for a handful of fleeting applause. We wear softer masks, speak with quieter voices, and present easier, diluted versions of ourselves. Not because this feels right, but because we fear the cost of rejection. But here's the greater cost when your worth depends on the approval of others. You lose the still, steady voice within you. You lose the sanctuary of your own truth. Buddhist wisdom reminds us that attachment, even to reputation, is another chain of suffering. When we cling to being liked, we drift further away from being real. You weren't born to bend for every hand that tries to shape you. You weren't meant to be small just to soothe someone else's discomfort. You were made to root yourself like a mountain, strong and unshaken, and live from that place of unwavering truth. Ask yourself this: how many times have you betrayed your intuition just to avoid judgment? How often have you buried your dreams, silenced your voice, or played it safe just to stay within someone's invisible rules of acceptable real strength? Isn't about convincing the world to see you. It's about no longer needing their approval. Let people misunderstand you. Let them question your path. Their opinions are not your prison. Their judgment does not define your reality. As the Buddha said, "Do not look for a sanctuary in anyone except yourself." And within you, that sanctuary already exists, untouched, unshakable, and waiting for you to return. That is where true freedom begins, not in being understood by everyone, but in standing quietly and confidently in your own presence. Ask yourself, what would happen if I stopped performing, stopped bending, and simply allowed myself to exist? What would shift if you trusted your own light, even when others turned their gaze away? The people who are meant to walk beside you will never ask you to dim your radiance. And those who do, they are like passing clouds, temporary shadows, never meant to stay. Let it be okay if some people don't like you. That's not pride or arrogance, it's self-respect. It's the quiet declaration. This is who I am. I refuse to make myself smaller just to feel safe. You don't have to fight for your worth. You only need to remember it. Build your confidence from the inside where no one can take it away. Don't hand your sense of value to strangers and expect them to protect it. Don't wait for praise to feel important or permission to take your first step. Start small. Before you speak, ask yourself, am I sharing this from truth or from fear? Before you seek approval, pause and ask, do I already know what I need? These tiny moments of reflection are like anchors. They create a mind that is calm, grounded, and unshakable. The Buddha once said, "No one saves us but ourselves. No one can, and no one may. We ourselves must walk the path. So walk yours, not for applause, not for recognition, but simply because it's yours to walk." You were not born to live in someone's spotlight. You were born to stand in your own truth. Even in silence, even without validation, you shine all the same. Lesson 4. Why honoring yourself is the beginning of real compassion. We've been told over and over that to be good, we must be selfless, that loving others means forgetting ourselves. But here's a truth the world rarely speaks. You are not here to be empty, so that others may be full. You cannot light the way for others if your own flame is barely flickering. And yet, how often do we pour out our time, our energy, our hearts, even when we have nothing left to give? We wear exhaustion like a badge of honor, mistaking burnout for virtue. But Buddhist wisdom reminds us that true compassion always begins with the self. Imagine trying to light 1,000 lamps with a candle that's almost burned out. What you offer others will always mirror what you first give yourself. If your own heart is drained, your giving will feel strained, hollow, and heavy. But if your spirit is nourished, your kindness flows effortlessly, warm, abundant, and free. True giving has no hidden expectations, no silent resentment, and no price tag attached. Living for yourself isn't selfish. it's sacred. It means becoming a safe haven for your own soul, so that what you share with the world comes from a place of fullness, not from broken pieces. It's the quiet shift from constantly asking, "What do they need from me?" to asking, "What do I need today to feel whole, steady, and alive?" We live in a world that often celebrates self-sacrifice, where we're praised for burning ourselves out in service of everyone else. But here's the deeper truth. The greatest gift you can ever give to others is your own well-being. When your mind is calm, your love becomes pure and clear. When your spirit is full, your service becomes a blessing, joyful and effortless, instead of a heavy burden. Imagine what might change if you began treating your life as something sacred. What peace would blossom if you stopped apologizing for your needs? What boundaries would you finally draw not from anger, but from a deep respect for your own heart? Honoring yourself gives quiet permission for others to do the same. Your self-respect sends a powerful message. You don't have to burn yourself down to be loved. You don't have to disappear to be enough. So start today. Before you reach outward, turn inward. Ask your breath what it needs. Ask your spirit what it longs for. Be as gentle with yourself as you are with those you love. Offer yourself the same patience, the same understanding, the same presence you so freely give away. The Buddha taught that we must return home to ourselves, to sit, to breathe, to see with clarity. From that grounded stillness, love begins to flow like water. Giving becomes effortless. Compassion expands naturally, but only when we begin within. As the Buddha said, "You yourself, as much as anybody in the universe, deserve your love and affection." And this is not just a quote. It is an invitation. You were not born to burn out for others. You were born to shine, to tend to your own fire so that its warmth can touch the world gently, fully, and without condition. Build a mind that is steady, clear, and rooted in peace. Let your inner calm be your first priority, and from that place of wholeness, let your light become a gift that asks for nothing in return. Lesson 5. When you create for your soul, not for the crowd, there's a quiet, unshakable freedom that enters your life when you stop creating for applause and start creating from the deepest corners of your own soul. It's the freedom that comes when you realize that your worth isn't measured by likes, comments, or approval, but by the truth you carry within. The moment you stop chasing applause and finally tune in to the steady rhythm of your own heartbeat, something shifts. Imagine an artist pouring their soul onto a blank canvas, every brushstroke alive with spirit, only to abandon their vision because the crowd stayed silent. That's exactly what we do when we live for other people's approval. We abandon our truth, trading our vision for validation and our natural rhythm for someone else's ticking clock. But Buddhist wisdom whispers a different path. Peace begins the moment you stop performing for the world and start living from your own truth. So ask yourself, whose life am I really living right now? Whose version of success am I exhausting myself to imitate? In today's world, the noise is relentless. Society shouts who you should become, what you should achieve, and how your life should look. Social media floods your mind with carefully curated images of perfection, while family or culture impose timelines you never consciously agreed to follow. When you chase someone else's definition of success, you become like a wave, desperately trying to outrun the ocean, restless, tired, and never enough. Buddhism invites you to turn the compass inward. It teaches you to walk, guided by your own inner light, to stop asking, "What do they expect of me?" and start asking, "What truly honors my soul?" This is the art of inner freedom. Setting your own standards rather than bowing to someone else's rules. Keeping promises to yourself, not just to others. Choosing goals that nourish your spirit instead of feeding your ego. Picture a life where your worth isn't measured in promotions, follower counts, or trophies, but in your peace of mind, your integrity, and the quiet knowing that you lived each day aligned with your deepest values. When you stop comparing your chapter to someone else's story, something powerful happens. You slow down. You begin to walk at your pace. You're no longer in a race, but on a path. And that path is sacred because it's yours alone. Every step becomes intentional. Every choice, a quiet act of self-respect. Your life transforms into a living meditation, unassuming but deeply beautiful, like brush strokes only you can see on the canvas of your days. So make this your vow. I will create, not to impress, but to express. I will act not for recognition, but from alignment with my truth. I will live not to be seen, but to be whole. Real success isn't found in the loud noise of applause. It lives in the silence of self-trust. That is where your masterpiece exists. Not out there in the hands of others, but deep within you. Your work in this life is not to blindly follow the world handed to you, but to discover your own world. And then, with all the courage and love in your heart, give yourself fully to it. Not the world they told you to chase, not the one that fits their expectations, but the one that whispers to you from the quiet depths of your soul. So step down from the stage. Return to the private studio of your spirit, where creation is pure, where your art your voice. Your life is for an audience of one, your truest self. When you create from that sacred place, what comes back to you is real, lasting, and unmistakably yours. Lesson 6. You were never meant to be bargained. With a diamond doesn't negotiate its worth. It doesn't ask the market for permission to shine. It simply glows silent, unshaken, unapologetic. Yet so many of us live as though our value is something to be haggled over, as if our worth rises or falls depending on who notices or who approves. We break off small pieces of ourselves, offering them like currency in exchange for love, validation, or belonging, believing we must earn the right to simply exist. But Buddhism offers a gentle reminder. You are already enough. Your worth doesn't require an audience. It does not grow when someone praises you, nor does it fade when someone turns away. It simply is unchanging, steady, like the heartbeat that carries you through life. From childhood, we were trained to measure our value in achievements, appearances, and attention. We were told that being loved means performing. So we learned to shapeshift, to silence certain parts of ourselves, to wear masks that gain approval. But this endless bargaining comes at a cost. It fractures the soul, leaving us exhausted and disconnected from who we truly are. Buddhist wisdom teaches something radically freeing, unconditional self-acceptance. A mountain does not explain its height. A river does not justify the way it flows. And you do not need to explain why you exist. You are already whole, complete without needing validation from anyone. Imagine the liberation you'd feel if you no longer asked, "Am I good enough for them?" but instead believed I am already whole as I am. Picture yourself moving through life as steady as the earth, unmoved by flattery, untouched by criticism. True peace begins when you stop striking deals with your soul. When you stop asking for permission to be exactly who you are. You don't have to impress, persuade, or prove anything. You weren't born to convince the world of your value. You were born to live it. And when you live it, you become free, because what others think of you is not the truth. Their opinion is just an echo, while the real truth lives quietly, unshakably within you. In that still, quiet place within you, where you finally remember, I am already enough. There is no arrogance, only truth. It is the gentle yet unshakable strength of living true to your nature. The Buddha once said, "You yourself, just as much as anyone else in the entire universe, deserve your own love and care." Let this wisdom guide every step you take. Your worth is not a competition. not something you must earn. It's your birthright. So stop handing over pieces of your soul just to feel accepted. Stop measuring your spirit by the fragile yardstick of other people's approval. Build a mind that is calm, focused, and filled with thoughts that uplift you rather than diminish you. Walk through this life not as a question begging to be answered, but as a full, clear sentence. I am here. I am whole. And that is enough. Lesson 7. Stop making yourself small. You were born to be whole. There comes a moment in every life when you grow weary of shrinking, of bending, and folding yourself into smaller shapes just to squeeze into someone else's idea of who you should be. You grow tired of apologizing for your truth, your feelings, or your strength. And when that moment arrives, it's not loud or dramatic. It comes as a quiet whisper from your soul, softly but firmly, saying, "You were never meant to live this way." Buddhism doesn't ask you to become something you're not. It shows you how to come home to who you already are, whole-worthy and complete. The pain you feel when you strive endlessly to prove your worth, to please everyone, or to seek their approval. That pain doesn't come because you're broken. It comes because you've drifted away from your own essence. You weren't put here just to be liked. You weren't born to be understood by everyone. You are here to be you, fully, freely, and with unshaken courage. The Buddha taught that suffering arises from attachment, and one of the strongest attachments we hold is the false belief that our worth depends on other people's validation. But the truth is simple and liberating. You don't have to earn love, and you don't have to chase peace. The moment you stop waiting for permission to be who you are, real healing begins. Ask yourself, where in my life am I still hiding? Where am I holding back my truth, hoping someone will choose me, hoping to finally feel enough? And more importantly, what would my life look like if I stopped? What would happen if you no longer explained yourself? If you no longer edited your soul just to be palatable? What if you simply allowed yourself to be without the pressure to perform or prove? You weren't born to live on a stage. You were born to sit fully in your own presence, to feel a peace that doesn't need applause. True confidence, the deep, steady kind, doesn't come from convincing the world of your worth. It comes from falling in love with your own inner light. So don't shrink. Don't settle. Don't hand over your value to a world that may never know how to see it. Your worth is not open for debate. Your truth is not up for anyone's approval. Your life is not a show built for applause. It's a sacred path of becoming, step by step, breath by breath. As the Buddha said, peace comes from within. Do not seek it without. This is your moment to stop hiding, to stop proving, and to start living from the fullness of who you truly are. Because the world doesn't need another imitation. It needs your authentic light. Allow yourself to take up space. Allow yourself to shine boldly and unapologetically. Let that be your quiet act of rebellion, to be true, to be whole, to be you. And now we arrive at the end. But perhaps this is also your beginning. If this message stirred something inside you, if it made you pause, reflect, or remember who you are, beneath all the noise, don't let that feeling fade. Let it take root, because nothing changes until you choose to change. Not tomorrow, not someday, but now. This is your life, your path, your moment to stop performing and start being. I invite you not to chase another version of yourself, but to return to the self you may have left behind, the one that doesn't need validation, the one that only wants to live with depth, presence, and truth. Tell me in the comments, which part of this message touched your heart the most? I read every word, and who knows, your insight might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. If you're ready to walk this path of inner freedom, ready to live by your truth, rather than the world's demands, make sure to subscribe and turn on the bell icon. This channel isn't just about content. It's a sanctuary, a quiet space for your soul to rest and grow. Thank you for being here, for choosing growth, and for choosing yourself. Until next time, breathe deeply, walk gently, and always return home to who you truly are.